Hi, I'm Greg Robinson and this is myphotographyshow.com. I'm here right now to critique this image. This image was sent in by Lynne, who says that she wanted to categorize this as a travel, but is a street on the small colourful Venetian island of Burano. I enjoyed how the rain seemed to enhance the brightness of the colours on an otherwise darkened, rainy day. You did well to see this, Lynne. It's a beautiful image, very well composed. I'm going to critique this in 3 different stages. The first one is going to be about your settings. The second one is going to be about your composition, and I might talk a bit about your colours and what you could have done, okay? Let's dive right into it. Now, you chose 400 ISO, as you can see right here, which was a good choice given the rainy day. It was pretty dark, so 400 ISO is probably what you needed. Your shutter speed at 1/125th of a second, and your aperture of f/4. Now, several things I would have suggested. First off would have been to bring a tripod. I don't think you had one with you. This would have enabled you to bring your shutter speed down, because if you had a tripod, basically you would have gone down to 200 or 100 ISO depending on your camera, and you could have closed your aperture to f/22 in order to get the most depth of field possible. At f4, this is what we call, well, what I call anyway, it's an isolating aperture. It's the singular theme aperture, okay? It's when you only have one subject and you want to distinguish it from your background. You choose a very wide aperture in order to have only that in sharp focus and the rest off into a blur. If you want everything from foreground to background in perfectly sharp focus, I would suggest f22 or f16, okay? That way you would lose quite a lot of light, so your ISO down to 200, let's say, you lose 1 stop of light. Your aperture is at f4, so you go up to f5.6, 8, 11 and 16. So that's 5 stops of light that you're losing, which you'd have to get back, as it were, by using your shutter speed and bringing it down. So you bring it down to 1/60th, 1/30th, 1/15th, 1/8 and 1/4 of a second. So a 1/4 of a second shutter speed, which you cannot shoot handheld. It's just not possible, okay? Otherwise your image would be filled with camera shake and blurry all over the place. So what I would have suggested, 200 ISO, aperture of f22, and normally your shutter speed would have suggested a 1/4 of a second. So that's it for your settings. Now, in terms of composition, I quite like this, especially how you've decided to compose it in the vertical thirds. You've respected the rule of third. If I create a vertical line coming into a third of the image, I suspect will be around here. Let's try it. Which would mean basically that the other 2/3, there it is, it's just there. So the main 2/3 of your image is occupied by these huge buildings here. Well, huge, they're only 2-stage view. In the composition they're huge, which is what's good. So you have them occupying these 2/3 here, and then off on the left third we have more information. Now generally when you want to guide your viewer's eye into something else than your subject, your main subject here being these 2 buildings, what I suggest is making your image readable from left to right, okay? Because we generally read from left to right. So in this case I would do an image and flip it vertically, sorry. You flip it no, it wasn't vertical at all, excuse me. I'm gonna flip it, well, vertical this time again, and then horizontally. There we go, flip image, horizontally, there we go. Now, as you can see, we're reading the image from left to right. Okay, it's much easier for the viewer. We're kind of guided, our eye is guided from one side to the other, and it's easier to be guided to the right. And as you can see, it doesn't change much in the image, you know, although it makes it a little easier to read. We feel that it's kind of different, you know, we don't have this kind of block stopping us from reading on the right. It just continues, it flows a bit better. Second thing that I would suggest, let me just clear the guide, would have been to lower your point of view. Here you were touched with the what I call the tourist syndrome. What happens with tourists generally when they want to take a picture, they just bring their camera up to their face and shoot, okay? In many cases that can work. The problem is, in today's society, we are very much used to getting lots of pictures, seeing lots of different images, so you have to be as original, as new as possible, okay? For this, you have to propose different points of view, something to engage the viewer. And for that, I would have taken advantage of this beautiful wet floor and the reflections that it has. You can see just here it has a few reflections of the buildings that are in front, and even actually put your camera on the floor. I'm serious. You put it on the floor, maybe holding it by tilting it a bit backwards, because those buildings will be out of the composition if you do that. But you hold it a little higher, and that way you have immediate foreground interest. You've got the floor that's guiding our eye into the composition. It makes it much more interesting. And there we go. For compositionally, that's what I would suggest. So flipping the image around and using the floor as immediate foreground interest. And lastly, your colors. Your colors are great here. I love what you've done with the sky. We can really see it's very dramatic. It's got lots of texture and patterns. We can see the clouds. It's much better than these milky, silky clouds or skies sometimes, which aren't very interesting. This one's beautiful, and you've enhanced the colors on that wonderfully. As well as on the buildings and in these stores hanging down. The beautiful red there really catches the eye, so well done on that. There we go. Thanks again, Lynne, for sending your image in. I hope you'll send others in. For you other viewers, I hope you enjoyed this critique and you learned something too. Please don't hesitate to join us on myphotographyshow.com to send your images. I'll be more than happy to critique them. Find us on Facebook at My Photography Show, like our page, because we've got different things going on there, as well as the Twitter, sorry, I always say the in front, I don't know why, as well as Twitter. But mainly, please send your images for a critique. Don't be scared, I won't be nasty, I won't say anything bad. Just send in your images. This is Greg Robinson from myphotographyshow.com saying until next time, you have fun shooting.